Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix, the original F1 night race and one of the most physically demanding races of the season. I have to say, with the recent resurgence of Max Verstappen and the twists and turns we've seen in the last couple of races, I'm really looking forward to this one, probably more so than usual. But anyway, last time out F1 was in Baku, where Max Verstappen took his second win on the bounce to make a few people suddenly sit up and take notice. But now it is on to the demanding 4.940 kilometre, that is just over 3 mile, 19 corner Marina Bay Street Circuit for round 18 of this 24 race season. The track is honestly largely DRS zones this weekend, with 4 in total. The first of those zones runs between turns 5 and 7, the second between turns 13 and 14. The third is shortly after that and runs between turns 14 and 16. And by the way, both of those zones share the detection point that crops up just before turn 13. And the final zone is down the start-finish straight, as you'd expect. It's another street track, so again, overtaking won't be easy, but it is doable. We do see cars side by side through that first sequence of corners, so expect some action there. The long run to turn 7 probably offers up the best opportunity though, and the change made to the layout in 2023 means we might see some passes into and on the run to turn 16. Either way, it's not going to be easy, and DRS trains could be the story of the weekend. When it comes to some historical stats, the circuit has hosted 15 races since its debut on the World Championship calendar in 2008, with 7 different drivers taking victory over the years, Sebastian Vettel holding the record for the most wins at Marina Bay with 5. And 8 different drivers have taken pole position at the track since it made its World Championship debut, with Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton taking the most with 4 apiece. Charles Leclerc, by the way, is third on that list with 2. And it just so happens that 2 is the number of different compounds a driver must run in a dry race. And guess what? 8 is the total number of compounds if we include the inters and the wets in the whole Pirelli range. Oh yes, people, that's right. It is a double segue into tyre talk time. Only 6 more to go. The compounds available for this one then are in the middle of the ranges, so they are the hard C3, the medium C4 and the soft C5. Now, the stress on the tyres around the track isn't all that high, but degradation at Marina Bay is mainly down to thermal stress, which is why the C6 was not brought to this event despite the fact it's been predominantly billed as a street track tyre. Essentially, it'll struggle to cope with the extreme temperatures and the high downforce levels required. Track evolution around Marina Bay is, as it is every year, expected to be very high. And don't forget that FP2 is the only really representative practice session this weekend, because it runs at the same time as qualifying and a similar time to the race, so expect to see quite a lot of action on Friday afternoon. It is also highly likely that the preferred compounds for the race will be, once again, the hards and the mediums, but a late safety car or even taking a gamble on an early one may result in the softs getting a look in. It is also worth a mention that the pit lane speed limit has been increased from 60 to 80 kilometers an hour, so that means less time obviously spent in the pits, and that might make a multi-stop race more viable. On the subject of strategy, last year's winning one was a one-stopper with Lando Norris starting on the mediums before switching to the hards on lap 30, which he ran all the way to the end of the race. And looking back at last year's event, every single driver who finished the race pitted just the once, apart from Daniel Ricciardo, who actually pitted 3 times, his final trip through the pits, giving him the chance to go for fastest lap, which of course, as I'm sure you remember, he took. I mean, as you might expect with it being a street track position is king, and so teams will likely target a one-stopper this weekend. But as we've seen in the past, there are ways to get creative with strategy to maximise a result, some more legal than others. On that note, the safety car loves to make an appearance at Marina Bay, with every single race up to and including 2023 featuring at least one. That means last year's race is obviously the only event where we didn't see one, and given the nature of the circuit, there is a high risk we will see it return on Sunday. And the weather is, of course, something that could throw another curveball into the mix for the strategists, and all of that dry tyre talk may very quickly become irrelevant, because at time of recording, which is Wednesday afternoon, by the way, rain is in the air all weekend, with the opening 2 practice sessions looking the most likely to see some rain fall, but that could all shift between now and the weekend, and the latest forecast as of Thursday morning is on screen for you to have a look at now. And your schedule for this one is, due to the fact it is a night race, quite close to the usual European times. So that means that FP1 will get the weekend started on Friday at 10:30 a.m. BST, and that is followed by FP2 later that same day at 2 p.m. Saturday's F1 action starts with FP3 at 10:30 a.m. with qualifying underway from 2 p.m. And it will be lights out for the race on Sunday at 1 p.m. And once again, that is in UK time. And alongside Formula One action, F1 Academy returns this weekend for the penultimate event of its season, so keep an eye out for that. Now, before I make my next round of predictions, let's have a run through a couple of news stories that have been doing the rounds since Baku, and to be honest, not much out there relevant to this weekend as I sit and record this, so let's do a bit of a roundup. Max Verstappen and teammate Chris Lullum took a dominant GT3 victory at the Nürburgring last weekend. Verstappen qualified third in the Pro class at the latest NLS round, and by the time the first corner arrived, he was already in the lead. He opened up a huge gap of 62 seconds over the rest of the pack before swapping with Lullum, who saw the victory to its conclusion. On Monday, Lewis Hamilton sadly announced the loss of his dog, Roscoe. The Brit explained on social media that Roscoe had spent 4 days on life support in a coma after catching pneumonia and fought with every bit of strength he had right until the very end. Hamilton went on to add that having him was one of the most beautiful parts of life, to love so deeply and to be loved in return, and thanked everyone for the love and support they've shown Roscoe over the years. And in much happier news, Romain Grosjean was back behind the wheel of an F1 car last week as he took part in a test at Mugello with Haas, the Frenchman describing it as a special day before admitting that he felt a little bit rusty initially. Grosjean said he even got to do a standing start before adding, quote, "My last standing start was Bahrain 2020. This time it turned out way better." Just a slight understatement there, Roman. It should also be mentioned that once again, McLaren have the chance to officially wrap up the Constructors Championship in Singapore, having missed a chance to do so in Baku. The simplest way to put this is that they just need to score 13 points to win the title, regardless of what any other team does. And even if both cars do fail to score, Mercedes have still got to outscore McLaren by no fewer than 31 points, and Ferrari need to do so by no fewer than 35 points. Long story short, it's inevitable and will likely be done on Sunday. Right then, time to make some predictions, and as always, please do not take these too seriously. They are just a little bit of fun, but if you do disagree with my picks, then you can let me know yours in the comment section down below. And last time, pretty easy to sum this one up actually. Wrong, and wrong again. Not even a half point, so the less said, the better. Disaster weekend. This week, of course, McLaren will be the favourites, as it still seems they are the team to beat, but Max Verstappen has certainly started to make things a little bit more interesting, having taken those back-to-back wins. So it's not a foregone conclusion the Woking squad will rock up and blow everyone away. That said, this is the only circuit on the current calendar Max has failed to win at, so he'll want to rectify that. Also worth noting that it looks set to be a very warm one across the event, so that might not be good news for Mercedes. As for Ferrari, who knows? They'll either turn up and dominate or just gradually fall apart as the weekend goes on. I've given up trying to work them out at the moment, frankly. With all of that said, I'm going to take somewhat of a risk, although perhaps some of you won't see it as a risk given the last 2 races, but it still feels a bit like one, and say that Max Verstappen takes pole on Saturday and manages to convert that into victory on Sunday. I'll go with Lando Norris P2 and Oscar Piastri P3, and as a quick side note, he needs to keep it clean this time and bounce back from his disastrous weekend in Baku, doesn't he? Behind them, I'll say that Mercedes will outscore Ferrari and also say that Williams end up as the 5th best finishing team on Sunday. I'm not expecting another podium, although it would be nice to see one of the Williams boys up there again. I'm also going to make a sort of side prediction before I get on to bolder ones and all of that, and say that Yuki Tsunoda continues to improve this weekend and hey, maybe even picks up another top 5, 6, 7 finish. It would just be nice to see him build on what was a decent weekend in Baku. As for some separate bolder picks, which perhaps rely on a bit of street track drama, I'll go with a top 5 finish for Alex Albon, points for both of the Saubers, and you probably know what's coming, because I'm pretty desperate to see every driver that can score between now and Abu Dhabi score some points. So I'm going to say it again. Franco Colapinto scores his first point or points for Alpine. I will keep making that prediction until he does it between now and the end of the season. That is it for the Singapore Grand Prix preview then, but don't forget you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comment section down below. Now, I will be back across the weekend with the usual qualifying and race watch-along live streams. But in the meantime, if you did enjoy this one, then please do leave a like, as it really does help the channel in its never-ending battle with the YouTube algorithm. And consider subscribing too so you don't miss any future videos or streams. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.